Have you ever opened your retirement account, looked at the balance, and immediately wondered whether you're actually doing okay? Not great, not terrible, just okay. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? You've spent years contributing to your retirement accounts. Maybe you've been faithfully putting money into your 401k every payday. Maybe you've opened a Roth IRA and tried to stay consistent. Maybe you've even increased your contributions whenever you received a raise. Yet, despite all of that effort, there's still this lingering uncertainty. Am I ahead? Am I behind? Am I making progress? Or am I simply convincing myself that everything will somehow work out? The truth is, retirement planning can feel frustratingly vague. Unlike a race where you can clearly see the finish line, retirement saving often feels like driving through fog. You know you're moving, but it's difficult to tell exactly where you are, and that's where many people get trapped. They start comparing themselves to random statistics. One article says the average retirement account balance is less than six figures. Another claims you'll need well over $1 million to retire comfortably. One financial expert tells you you're doing fine. Another warns that you're dangerously behind. After a while, all the conflicting information creates more anxiety than clarity. What many people don't realize is that retirement readiness isn't measured by a single number. In fact, some individuals with relatively modest account balances are positioned far better for retirement than people with significantly larger portfolios. That sounds backward at first, but once you understand how successful retirement planning actually works, it starts to make perfect sense. Over the years, I've spent countless hours studying retirement behavior, not just investment returns and account balances, but the habits, decisions, and mindsets that separate people who retire confidently from those who spend their later years worrying about money. And one thing keeps appearing again and again. The people who end up thriving in retirement aren't necessarily the ones who earned the most money. They're often the ones who understood a few critical principles and applied them consistently over time. Today, I want to walk through three powerful signs that your retirement portfolio may already be far ahead of where most people are. Some of these signs have surprisingly little to do with your account balance, and if you recognize yourself in even one or two of them, you may be in a much stronger position than you think. Let's begin with the first sign. The first sign that you're ahead of most retirement savers is surprisingly simple. Your money is actually invested. Now, before you laugh and think, of course my money is invested, stay with me for a moment, because there is a huge difference between having money inside a retirement account and having that money properly invested. Most people assume those two things are automatically the same. They aren't. Every year, countless workers faithfully contribute to retirement accounts without ever taking a close look at what happens after the money arrives. Sometimes those contributions end up sitting in cash. Sometimes they're parked in money market funds. Sometimes they're sitting in ultra-conservative holdings designed to preserve principal but generate very little long-term growth. And in many cases, the account owner has absolutely no idea. Think about that for a second. Imagine spending 20 years diligently contributing money only to discover that much of it never had a real opportunity to grow. Unfortunately, this happens far more often than people realize. The real engine of retirement wealth isn't contributions alone. It's contributions combined with compounding. And compounding only works when your money has the opportunity to participate in growth. That's why broad stock market index funds have historically been such powerful wealth building tools. That's why diversified portfolios matter. That's why long-term investors often see results that seem almost unbelievable when viewed over multiple decades. Compounding isn't dramatic. It doesn't usually feel exciting. In fact, for years, it can seem disappointingly slow. Then one day you look back and realize that growth is producing more growth than your original contributions ever could. That's when the magic starts happening. Imagine two individuals who each begin with the exact same amount of money. One keeps that money in cash for 20 years. The other invests it in a diversified portfolio and allows time to do the heavy lifting. The difference isn't small, it's life-changing. The gap can easily reach hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not because one person worked harder, not because one person was smarter, simply because one person's money was working while the other's was standing still. And that's an important lesson. Inflation never takes a day off. Every year, the purchasing power of your money quietly erodes. If your investments aren't growing faster than inflation, you're effectively moving backward without realizing it. That's why one of the healthiest questions you can ask yourself this week is incredibly simple. Do I know what my retirement money is invested in? Not generally, not approximately, specifically. If you don't know the answer, that's okay. There's no shame in it. But there is tremendous value in finding out. Spend 20 minutes reviewing your accounts. Look at the holdings, look at the allocation, look at the fees. You may discover you're already positioned well, or you may uncover opportunities that could dramatically improve your long-term results. Either outcome is valuable. And while we're discussing investments, there's another detail that deserves attention. Fees. This topic sounds boring. I know, nobody gets excited about expense ratios. Yet small fees have a remarkable ability to quietly drain wealth over time. A 1% annual fee doesn't sound significant, but over 30 years, that seemingly harmless fee can consume tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars that could have remained in your portfolio. That's money that belongs to your future self, which is why low-cost investing has become such a powerful principle among successful retirement savers. They're not trying to beat the market. They're trying to capture as much of the market's growth as possible while minimizing unnecessary costs. Simple, effective, powerful. And if you're already doing that, you're further ahead than many people realize. Now let's move to the second sign, and in my opinion, this one reveals far more about future retirement success than most account balances ever could. The second sign that your retirement portfolio is ahead of most people has very little to do with investment returns. And surprisingly, it has very little to do with income too. It comes down to something much more important. Your savings rate has kept pace with your success. Now that might sound simple, but this is where many retirement plans quietly fall apart. Let's talk about what usually happens. Imagine someone gets a raise. Maybe their salary jumps from $60,000 to $75,000. That's a meaningful increase. They worked hard for it. They deserve it. Naturally, life improves a little. Maybe they upgrade their vehicle. Maybe they move into a nicer neighborhood. Maybe they start taking better vacations. Maybe dining out becomes a little more frequent. None of these things are bad. In fact, enjoying the rewards of your hard work is one of the reasons we pursue financial success in the first place. The problem begins when every dollar of increased income immediately gets absorbed by increased spending. Financially speaking, the person is running faster but never moving ahead. Economists call this lifestyle inflation. I think of it as one of the quietest threats to retirement security because it rarely feels dangerous in the moment. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to sabotage their retirement. It happens gradually, one upgrade at a time, one subscription at a time, one monthly payment at a time. Before long, the additional income that could have strengthened their future has disappeared into their lifestyle. And here's what makes this especially tricky. From the outside, everything looks successful. The income is higher, the house is nicer, the car is newer, the vacations look better on social media. Yet beneath the surface, retirement progress may have barely improved at all. Meanwhile, someone else earns the same salary increase but chooses a different path. Instead of spending every extra dollar, they redirect a portion of that raise into their retirement accounts. Maybe they increase their 401k contribution from 10% to 13%. Maybe they automatically increase their Roth IRA deposits. Maybe they save half of every future raise before they even have a chance to spend it. The difference doesn't seem dramatic at first. But over 10, 20, or 30 years, it's enormous because every additional dollar saved isn't just a dollar. It's a dollar that gets invested. It's a dollar that compounds. It's a dollar that potentially generates decades of future growth. And that's where retirement wealth is truly built, not through one-time financial heroics, not through finding the next hot stock, not through predicting the market, but through consistency. One of the most powerful habits I've seen among financially successful retirees is that they learned how to separate income growth from lifestyle growth. As their income increased, their spending increased more slowly. That gap became fuel for future freedom. And freedom is really what retirement planning is about. People often think retirement is about having a giant pile of money. It's not. Retirement is about options. It's about waking up and deciding how you want to spend your day. It's about having choices. It's about being able to help family members if needed. It's about being able to handle unexpected expenses without panic. It's about sleeping peacefully at night. Every dollar saved today purchases a little more freedom tomorrow. That's why your savings rate matters so much. If you're consistently saving 15% of your income, you're doing better than many households. If you're saving 20% or more, you're entering territory that significantly improves your long-term odds of success. And before anyone hears those numbers and feels discouraged, remember something important. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. You don't have to save 20% overnight. You don't have to completely transform your finances this month. Sometimes increasing your contribution by just 1% creates a meaningful improvement. The goal isn't to make one giant leap. The goal is to keep moving forward, because time is often more powerful than intensity. Someone who saves consistently for 30 years usually ends up in a stronger position than someone who saves aggressively for only a few years. Consistency wins more often than brilliance. And that brings us to the third sign. This is the sign that separates people who have simply accumulated money from people who have actually prepared for retirement. And honestly, it's one of the most overlooked concepts in personal finance. It's called having a plan for sequence of returns risk. Now, don't let the technical name scare you away. The concept itself is surprisingly straightforward. Most people think retirement planning works like this. You build a portfolio. The portfolio earns average returns. You withdraw money. Everything works out. Simple. Unfortunately, real life doesn't operate on averages. Markets don't move in straight lines. Some years are fantastic. Some years are painful. And the order in which those years occur can dramatically impact retirement outcomes. Let's imagine two retirees. Both retire with exactly $1 million. Both experience the same average return over 30 years. At first glance, they should end up in roughly the same position, but they don't. The first retiree experiences strong market growth during the first 5 years of retirement. The second retiree experiences a severe market decline during the first 5 years. After that, both investors experience identical long-term averages. The results can be shockingly different. Why? Because retirement isn't just about growth anymore. It's also about withdrawals. When you're taking money out during a downturn, you're selling assets at depressed prices. Those shares are gone forever. They don't participate in the eventual recovery. The portfolio loses part of its future earning power. And that's why the early years of retirement carry so much weight. A bad sequence of returns can damage an otherwise healthy retirement plan. The encouraging news is that people who understand this risk can prepare for it. They don't have to predict the future. They don't have to know when the next market crash will happen. They simply build flexibility into their plan. Some retirees maintain a cash reserve. Others keep several years of spending needs in safer investments. Some use flexible withdrawal strategies. Others gradually adjust asset allocations as retirement approaches. The specific strategy matters less than the awareness itself, because awareness changes behavior. People who understand sequence risk don't panic when markets become volatile. They've already considered the possibility, they've already built contingencies. They know uncertainty is part of investing, and that confidence can become incredibly valuable during difficult periods. Think back to major market downturns throughout history. Every crisis feels different when you're living through it. Every headline sounds convincing. Every prediction feels urgent. Yet, time and again, disciplined investors who stayed focused on their long term plans were eventually rewarded. That's not because they're smarter, it's because they prepared before emotions entered the equation. And that's really the larger lesson behind all three signs we've discussed today. Retirement success rarely comes from extraordinary intelligence. It rarely comes from perfect market timing, and it certainly doesn't come from luck alone. More often than not, it comes from paying attention to what your money is invested in, paying attention to how much of your income you're saving, paying attention to the risks that could affect your future. Those small acts of attention compound just like investments do, little by little, year after year, decision after decision, until one day you realize you've built something meaningful, something strong, something capable of supporting the life you want to live. And that's why I want to leave you with one final thought. When people imagine retirement, they often picture a finish line, a specific age, a specific dollar amount, a specific date on the calendar. But after studying retirement for years, I've come to believe that's the wrong way to think about it. Retirement isn't a finish line, it's a transition. It's the moment when decades of decisions begin working for you instead of requiring work from you. Every contribution you make today is a gift to that future version of yourself. Every smart decision is a vote for future freedom. Every dollar invested is a tiny employee working on your behalf around the clock. The future version of you is depending on the choices you're making right now. Not the perfect choices, not flawless decisions, just thoughtful, consistent ones. And if you've watched this far, or if you've taken the time to read this far, you've already demonstrated something that many people never do. You're paying attention, you're asking questions, you're trying to understand. That alone puts you ahead of more people than you might think. So take a few minutes this week, review your accounts, check your allocation, look at your savings rate, learn a little more about sequence of returns risk, not because you should be afraid, not because you're behind, but because knowledge creates confidence, and confidence creates better decisions. The road to retirement isn't built in a single day. It's built one decision at a time, one contribution at a time, 1 year at a time. Keep going. Your future self will be grateful you did. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about something that rarely shows up in retirement calculators, investment projections, or financial headlines. Peace of mind. Because at the end of the day, that's what most people are really chasing. When someone says they want $1 million in retirement, what they're often saying is that they want to stop worrying. They want confidence, they want security, they want the ability to enjoy life without constantly looking over their shoulder, wondering if they'll run out of money. And here's the interesting thing. I've seen people with very large portfolios who still worry constantly. I've also seen people with more modest portfolios who sleep incredibly well at night. The difference often comes down to preparation. Preparation creates confidence. Confidence reduces fear. Fear is expensive. When people are afraid, they make emotional decisions. They panic during market downturns. They sell investments at the worst possible times. They abandon long-term plans because short-term volatility makes them uncomfortable. The people who tend to succeed over the long run aren't necessarily fearless. They're prepared. They've taken the time to understand how their plan works. They know what they own. They know why they own it. And they know what they'll do when markets inevitably become turbulent. That's an incredibly powerful position to be in, because volatility isn't a possibility, it's a certainty. At some point, The market will decline. There will be scary headlines. Experts will disagree. Predictions will fly in every direction. And when that happens, preparation becomes your greatest asset. Think about the investors who successfully navigated the financial crisis. Think about those who stayed disciplined through the pandemic volatility. Think about those who continued investing during periods when everyone else was terrified. Many of them weren't financial experts. They simply understood a fundamental truth. Temporary market declines are uncomfortable, but abandoning a sound plan can be devastating. That's why retirement planning is as much about behavior as it is about math. The numbers matter. Of course they do. But your ability to stick with a good strategy often matters even more. One of my favorite observations about investing is that successful retirement planning is surprisingly boring. And I mean that as a compliment. The best retirement stories usually don't involve dramatic stock picks. They don't involve overnight fortunes. They don't involve perfect market timing. Instead, they sound something like this. I contributed every year. I increased my savings whenever I could. I stayed invested. I avoided unnecessary debt. I kept learning. I remained patient. Those stories aren't flashy, but they're incredibly effective. And that's good news because it means retirement success is available to ordinary people. You don't need to be a Wall Street professional. You don't need advanced financial training. You don't need to spend every waking hour studying markets. You simply need a solid plan and the discipline to follow it. And if you're wondering whether your efforts today really matter, let me reassure you, they do, more than you realize. Every contribution matters. Every percentage increase in savings matters. Every year you remain invested matters. Every financial habit you improve matters. Because retirement wealth is rarely built through one giant decision. It's built through thousands of small decisions that seem insignificant in the moment. That's the part many people miss. Compounding doesn't just apply to money, it applies to behavior. Good financial habits compound, knowledge compounds, discipline compounds, consistency compounds. And eventually, those small actions create results that seem almost unbelievable when viewed from a distance. Imagine looking back 20 years from now. Imagine opening your retirement account and realizing that the choices you made today became the foundation for your future freedom. Imagine knowing that because you paid attention, because you stayed consistent, because you resisted the temptation to put your future on autopilot, you created options for yourself and the people you care about. That's what retirement planning is really about. Not numbers on a screen, not bragging rights, not comparing yourself to strangers on the internet. It's about creating choices. It's about creating security. It's about creating the freedom to spend your later years the way you want instead of the way circumstances force you to. So let's quickly revisit the 3 signs we've covered. First, your money is actually invested in growth-oriented, diversified, low-cost assets rather than sitting idle and losing purchasing power to inflation. Second, your savings rate has grown alongside your income, meaning you've managed to avoid the trap of allowing lifestyle inflation to consume every raise and every opportunity. And third, you've started thinking beyond simple averages and have considered how market timing, sequence of returns risk, and withdrawal strategies can impact your retirement years. If you can honestly say yes to even one of these, you're already moving in the right direction. If you can say yes to all 3, there's a very good chance you're significantly further ahead than you realize, not because your portfolio is necessarily bigger, but because your foundation is stronger, and foundations matter. A strong financial future is built the same way a strong house is built. Most people never see the foundation. It's not exciting, it's not glamorous, but it's the reason everything else stands. The same is true for retirement. The habits you build today become the foundation that supports your future lifestyle tomorrow. And while none of us can predict exactly what the future holds, we can control the decisions we're making right now. We can save, we can invest, we can learn, we can prepare, And over time, those actions can transform uncertainty into confidence. So after this video, do yourself a favor, set aside 30 minutes, just 30. Log into your retirement accounts, review your investments, calculate your savings rate, think honestly about your long-term plan. You don't need to overhaul your entire financial life tonight. You just need to take one step forward, because one step becomes another and another. And before you know it, you've built momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful forces in personal finance. The future version of you is depending on the decisions you're making today. Not next year, not someday, today. The good news is that every positive action you take from this point forward can still make a meaningful difference. That's the beauty of long-term investing. It's never about perfection. It's about persistence. Keep learning, keep saving, keep investing, keep showing up for your future self, because the retirement you're building isn't just about money. It's about freedom, dignity, independence, opportunity, and peace of mind. And those things are worth every bit of effort. If you found value in this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join our growing community of people who are committed to making smarter financial decisions. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 3 signs do you already have in place, and which one do you think deserves more attention? Your experience may help someone else who's trying to navigate their own retirement journey. And if this video helped simplify retirement planning in a way that made sense, take a moment to like the video. It helps more people find this content and helps us continue creating practical, honest conversations about money and retirement. Thank you for spending your time with me today. I truly appreciate it. Take care of yourself, take care of your future, and I'll see you in the next video.